The Assyrian law codes represent a critical component of Mesopotamian legal history, reflecting the sophisticated socio-political and economic systems of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire, emerging in northern Mesopotamia around the 25th century BCE and reaching its zenith between the 9th and 7th centuries BCE, developed legal codes to govern an increasingly complex and expansive society. These laws were largely influenced by earlier Mesopotamian legal traditions, particularly the Code of Ur-Nammu, laws of Eshnunna and Hammurabi's Code, but adapted to the unique needs of Assyrian society, which emphasized military order, trade, and centralization of power. The Assyrian legal tradition is primarily known through two major sources: the Middle Assyrian laws, c. the 14th to 11th century BCE, and inscriptions referencing legal practices from later periods. Unlike the well-known Babylonian codes, Assyrian laws were often more severe, reflecting the militaristic and authoritarian nature of the Assyrian state. These codes were preserved on clay tablets in cuneiform script, many of which were discovered in the royal archives of Assur and Nineveh. Structure and purpose of Assyrian law codes. The Middle Assyrian laws are the most complete and systematic set of legal texts available from Assyria. They are traditionally divided into three categories: 1. Criminal laws. 2. Civil laws. 3. Family laws. 1. Criminal laws. The criminal laws were designed to protect social order and maintain state authority. They often prescribed harsh punishments, including mutilation, fines, or death, reflecting the authoritarian and militaristic society. Some key features include assault and bodily harm. Physical attacks were punished severely, often with proportional retribution, e.g., an eye for an eye principles similar to Hammurabi, but sometimes even more extreme for crimes against the king or officials. Theft. Property crimes were met with heavy fines or enslavement, particularly if they involved royal or temple property. Adultery and sexual offenses. Punishments were strict, often involving death for adultery or rape, particularly if committed against higher social classes. Women's sexual conduct was highly regulated, reflecting the patriarchal nature of Assyrian society. Rebellion and treason. Offenses against the king or state were met with the harshest punishments, frequently capital punishment or execution by impalement. These criminal laws not only maintained social control but also reinforced the divine authority of the king, as laws were seen as emanating from the monarch under divine sanction. 2. Civil laws. Civil law in Assyria regulated economic transactions, property rights, and contractual obligations. Key points include property rights. Land ownership and transfer were formally regulated, including inheritance rights, sale, and leasing agreements. Failure to comply could result in fines or forfeiture. Contracts and debts. Agreements were enforceable by law, often documented on clay tablets. Debt-related disputes could result in servitude or other compensatory measures. Trade regulation. Assyrian law codified rules for merchants, ensuring commercial reliability. Trade across the empire was crucial, and laws often included penalties for fraud or breach of contract. Labor and slavery. Regulations covered treatment of slaves and servants. Although slavery was an accepted institution, mistreatment could incur penalties, indicating a concern for maintaining order and economic stability. Civil law emphasized economic fairness and property protection, balancing the power between citizens, merchants, and the state. 3. Family laws. Family law was heavily patriarchal, reflecting Assyrian social hierarchies and gender norms. Marriage and divorce. Marriage contracts were legally binding, often involving dowries. Divorce was permissible but usually favored male authority. Inheritance. Laws regulated inheritance to ensure property remained within families, particularly favoring male heirs. Women could inherit under certain conditions, but were generally secondary to male relatives. Adultery and sexual conduct. Women were subject to strict laws regarding sexual behavior, with adultery often punishable by death. Parental authority. Parents had legal control over children, including the right to arrange marriages and manage property. Family laws reinforced social hierarchies and emphasized the preservation of wealth, lineage, and social stability. Characteristics of Assyrian legal thought. The Assyrian law codes display several defining features. 1. Harsh punishments. Compared to other Mesopotamian codes, Assyrian laws were notably strict, reflecting a culture that prized obedience, loyalty, and military discipline. 2. Class distinctions. Penalties varied according to social status. Offenses against elites or the royal family incurred more severe consequences. 3. Patriarchal norms. Women's rights were limited, with a strong emphasis on regulating sexual behavior, marriage, and inheritance to ensure male-dominated family structures. 4. State control. Laws were instruments of state power, reinforcing the king's authority and the hierarchical social order. 5. Religious justification. Laws were often presented as divinely sanctioned, linking legal obedience with religious duty and moral responsibility. Comparison with other Mesopotamian codes. The Assyrian codes are closely related to but distinct from other Mesopotamian law codes. Ur-Nammu Code, c. 2100 BCE, older and more lenient, with fines rather than corporal punishment for many offenses. Laws of Eshnunna, c. 1930 BCE, similar in terms of commercial and property regulation but less focused on corporal punishment. Hammurabi's Code, c. 1750 BCE, shared the principle of retributive justice, but Assyrian laws were more militaristic and socially stratified. Assyrian law reflects a shift towards stricter control and codification in a state increasingly concerned with expansion, conquest, and internal stability. Significance and legacy. The Assyrian law codes are significant for several reasons. 1. Historical insight. They provide a detailed view of Assyrian social structure, economy, and governance. 2. Legal development. They represent an evolution of Mesopotamian legal tradition, bridging earlier codes with later Neo-Assyrian and even Neo-Babylonian legal practices. 3. Military society. The codes illustrate how legal systems can be adapted to support expansionist and militaristic states. 4. Gender and social norms. They reveal the patriarchal and hierarchical organization of ancient Assyrian society. 5. Influence on later law. While direct influence on modern legal systems is limited, the Assyrian codes contribute to the broader historical understanding of codified law in human civilizations. Despite the limited number of surviving texts, the Assyrian law codes remain a cornerstone for scholars studying ancient law, highlighting how early states regulated violence, commerce, family life, and social order. The Assyrian law codes, especially the Middle Assyrian laws, exemplify the sophistication and severity of Assyrian governance. They reflect a society deeply concerned with order, hierarchy, and the authority of the king, using law as both a tool for justice and a mechanism of control. By examining these codes alongside other Mesopotamian legal traditions, historians gain valuable insight into the legal, social, and economic complexities of one of the ancient world's most powerful empires. References 1. Roth, M.T., 1997. Law Collections from Mesopotamia and Asia Minor. Scholars Press. 2. Finkel, I.L. and Seymour, M., 2000. The Middle Assyrian Laws. Journal of Ancient Near Eastern History, 2 1, 45-67. 3. Reed, J., 1998. Assyrian Law, Social and Legal Contexts. British Museum Press. 4. Radner, K., 2011. The Assyrian Empire, Society and Legal Order. Orientalia 83, 321-345. 5. Van de Meerup, M., 2005. King Hammurabi of Babylon, a Biography. Blackwell Publishing.